Been spending most our lives living in a gangster's paradise. Been spending most our lives living in a gangster's paradise. Keep spending most our lives living in a gangster's paradise. Keep spending most our lives living in a gangster's paradise.
3, 2, 1, roll 5. Shots fired. What's the location? Only listening. Shots fired. 23rd Street. 23rd Street.
Good evening, friends. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, welcome to the 14th episode of Crime and Punishment. This is a legal podcast, not a political one. We here at the Invictus Law Firm, PA, love Big Brother as much as the next guy. This is a criminal defense law firm in Orlando, Florida, the website for which you can find at augustusinvictus.com. I'm here with my trusty co-host, Tiger Jin, and we are simulcasting to Twitch, DLive, Periscope, and YouTube. This past Friday, I put out the first newsletter for the law firm. I've been meaning to do that for a long time. You can find that at twitter.com/EmperorInvictus. It is issue number 1 for the Invictus Law Firm, PA. Basically just had the news about the malicious prosecution lawsuit that we filed last week. Had a link to this podcast, Crime and Punishment. And I would recommend that everybody go to augustusinvictus.com. You will see the email capture there. Just sign up for the email list. I believe you can also subscribe through the newsletter itself. So you would go to review. Go to twitter.com to my profile, Emperor and what is the profile? Emperor Invictus on Twitter, and I think you can sign up for the list via the review link. So, good evening, everyone. We've got a lot of news to talk about today. We are also going to try out the new format today. I forgot to mention. So, with us for the past 3 months that we've been doing this new show, you know that we do this every Monday night at 8 p.m. And if you're diehard listeners, you know that one week we even tried to do a daily show, and that failed spectacularly because we have actual jobs. And I don't know how people do a daily podcast when they have jobs. So what we're going to do tonight is split the difference. There are some shows out there who do 2-hour programs. It's like a TR something. Some initials. You probably have heard of the podcast. They do 2-hour shows. We're going to try that and see how it goes. I did it for a former podcast. Should work. Plus, we have a lot of news. Tonight, we're going to talk about Governor Ron DeSantis' latest executive order, canceling this nonsensical emergency over COVID. And for those of you who, like Tim Pool, think it's time to get out of your state and come down to Florida, I'm sorry, but we are full down here. And we don't need anyone else coming down. It's all taken up. I'm very sorry, but I would recommend you fix the laws in your own state. Kind of like a lot of people say, well, we don't want Mexicans coming over here. You know, they're escaping drug wars and corruption and all these things. Why don't they fix where they're from instead of coming over here? I'd say the same thing about everyone from Georgia to New York, all the way across to California. Like, if you don't like the COVID regulations in your state, don't come down to Florida. Fix the COVID regulations in your own state. How about that? But if you are in Florida and you need a criminal defense attorney, you know who to call. Some other things we're going to talk about. My son actually sent me a news article. An amazing thing. Not that he sent me an article, he sends me articles regularly, but the amazing thing is that it's the Washington Post that is criticizing the FBI for violating citizens' privacy. It's like Trump went away and they care about civil rights again. It's the most amazing thing. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the McCloskey case that we promised we would talk about a couple weeks ago. We're going to talk about Florida, a county in Florida using predictive policing. That's incredible. DeSantis' executive order, and first and foremost, the Chauvin trial. You might have thought it was over. It's actually just beginning. So, Tiger, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right.
Good to hear, man. So, this is our resident Chauvin expert here. Here's the most amazing thing. Yes, you know way more than me. I didn't watch it. Here's one comment I would make. I obviously, we're in the legal profession. We know a lot of lawyers. We also follow other lawyers on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Everybody's everywhere, right? And these are the crowds you hang out in. And it is disturbing. The number of people, and by people I mean criminal defense attorneys, who speak about the Chauvin trial. Everybody knows, I make no secret of it, I don't typically get along with police officers. I don't like what they do. I hate the corruption. I hate the entire idea of having a police force. It's the libertarian in me. But I'm also a criminal defense attorney. And as much as I've said on this show, hopefully cops start understanding the atmosphere they have helped to create in America by following these orders and not thinking about them, by just mindlessly executing these directives from their higher-ups. Now they understand what they have been doing to everyone in the right wing the past several years. I've said that. I'm not taking it back. But I've also said the guy did not get a fair trial. We've beaten this to death, I think, on here. The people I'm talking about, if you see a criminal defense attorney saying, it doesn't matter if he got a fair trial, what matters is accountability. Or if you see a criminal defense attorney saying, this guy is clearly guilty, like the trial's, pro forma. Or if you see them saying, yeah, his guilt is obvious, we saw him murder this guy on camera, you really should question that person's credentials as a criminal defense attorney. That is amazing that this comes out of people's mouths. You expect it from non-attorneys, no offense to all of you out there who are not attorneys, but you expect it from lay people that don't think in terms of innocent until proven guilty. That is driven into your head. You don't think in terms of legal procedures. The Constitution, the Fourth Amendment doesn't come first in your mind when you hear whatever crazy story just came out of the news. We are trained to think that way. And for someone to not be fully trained to think that way and to allow their emotions to override their reason, that is disturbing. And it's super disturbing because you've got to think, what if this person got a hold of my case? What if I were accused of a crime and this person saying these things turned out to be... That should really worry you. Should worry everybody. The criminal defense attorneys are jumping in on this mass hysteria. But let's talk about something even more amazing. Tiger, you have the legal insurrection article up? Because that's the one I was going to go to first.
Yep.
Report. Go ahead.
Feds plan to arrest Derek Chauvin at state courthouse if found not guilty. If Chauvin were found not guilty on all counts or the case ended in mistrial, they would arrest him at the courthouse.
That's a quote, by the way. That's a quote of a Justice Department official. Amazing. So, to break it down, what was going on is, if Chauvin had been acquitted of all the charges, if he had walked out of that courtroom a free man, found not guilty, FBI was waiting outside the door to make a show of arresting him on federal police brutality charges. You should probably just read the article, right?
It's not just the police brutality charges, which some of them are stemming not from George Floyd, but from a 2017 incident that he was a part of, where, well, let's see if it's somewhere in this article. No, it isn't. But, oh, there it is. Violent arrest of a 14-year-old boy in 2017. In the latter case, Chauvin struck the teen on the head with his flashlight, then grabbed him by the throat and hit him again, according to court documents. So it's that, civil rights charges, and the police brutality. And they decide that they're going to be charging him anyway. These charges are moving forward. Oh,
they're going to do it anyway, even though he's being...
Yep.
That is news to me. I didn't know that.
Yep. So we are likely going to have another Chauvin trial.
Incredible. I'm looking to the comments here, and I'm being asked, total absence of a police force? Who would enforce law and order? And my son says, police, sorry to call you out, son, but this is the same son that called me out last week. He says, police are a necessary evil, sad but true. And to both of those, I would reply, that's absolutely not true. For thousands and thousands of years, we have gone without police. This whole police state business with, cops on every corner and driving down the street with assault rifles and their armored cars, this is new. It used to be that men, and sorry to be sexist, but men used to police their own communities. Men used to enforce the law. If somebody broke the law, they would take the law to them. The sheriff would get a posse, they'd take them to the courthouse. There were processes before there were police forces, believe it or not. And this advent of these police departments, especially with Pentagon's weapons program, and that's not a conspiracy theory, the Pentagon gives local and state police departments their leftover weapons. And they've been escalating this for decades. This is new. This is not something that is in even American history, let alone world history.
And you know what? Speaking of world, I would like to tell you about an incident that I know of that happened in China with the police, just as a comparison. So remember, this is communist China, it's a total cyberpunk dystopia. That's how it is over there. But someone that I know was able to call up an old lady, an old couple. They called up the police because their phone was not loud enough on calls. And the police came over and they went and they checked it out, tried to help with the cell phone and everything. And then, oh, no, it's just a phone. It's a bit complicated for you. That's just how it is. And that is the communist, freedom-hating, dystopian society police, how they work. They are genuinely civil servants over there, and they'll just come over and help out an old couple with their phone.
That's incredible. I remember in Rock Hill, the first time I saw a cop pull somebody over, he wasn't pulling the guy over. He was actually helping him with a flat tire. I was amazed because you don't see that. Not where I come from.
I mean, there was another. This one I was a personal witness to in China, where they there was a dispute between neighbors, something about water, and one of them called the police. The police came over, and one of the neighbors shut off the other neighbor's water. And rather than arrest or do anything, they were just there debating with the neighbors about what they should do and everything, and just like, look, just treat each other well, turn back on the water, and just that was that. No beat downs, no arrests, no shooting, nothing.
Well, in sharp contrast, we have William Lynch here saying FBI sniper got a medal for blowing Vicki Weaver's head off while she was holding her baby daughter. That's a true story. For those of you youngins out there. That was Ruby Ridge. And then there was Waco, where the FBI murdered women and children, burned them to death in their home. Yeah, Ruby Ridge, Waco. Excellent commentary. So that's where law enforcement gets you. But, that being said, to my knowledge, Derek Chauvin was not at Ruby Ridge or Waco. And even if he had been, he's not on trial for that. He's on trial for the George Floyd incident. And now the FBI, who was at Ruby Ridge and Waco, they are the ones arresting him. What were you saying, Tiger?
So what I want to emphasize here about Chauvin is nothing about... So in one of these articles, it heads off with Chauvin, who is white, pinned down George Floyd, who was black. The entire 4 weeks of trial, race was never mentioned.
Didn't have to be.
It was never mentioned. Chauvin was never accused of being racist. And if Chauvin had any social media post the slightest bit, right, it would be in that trial.
It's in everybody else's, yeah.
Nobody, not even the prosecutors, were saying that Chauvin pinned down Floyd because he was black. Not at all. So you want to know, like, why is he now public enemy number one? Like what is this about? Well, it makes sense. I mean, I can tell you my theory, what this is. And this goes to form over substance. The best way I can put it is the non-objective people, the non-objective public, the people who think the way that they see things is, to them, image and form is more important than reality. So the image of this is a police officer on top of a black guy who dies, it's important to bring down the entire power of the government to just completely destroy that image, even though that incident is not an incident of actual racist. Just you kill that incident. Let's be real. Me and you, we know a few real, genuine racists. There are genuine people out there who are like, you are black, I hate you, and I wish you would die. Those people do exist. Chauvin is not one of them. He clearly is not, or it would be brought up at trial.
It would have been.
So it's more just, we are killing this image, this straw man, this form.
It's a scapegoat. Yeah. It's an ancient right. Have you ever watched South Park? It's not very family friendly, but there's a whole episode on this, how we, as the American public, sacrifice someone as our scapegoat. In the cartoon, it was to make the corn grow, right? But really, it's to make America work. You have to have these public sacrifices of human beings, and Derek Chauvin is the latest. James Fields, before that, human sacrifice, absolute scapegoat. But here's where we need to go with this now. The juror. Quote, I mean, it's important if we want to see some change. We want to see some things going different. We got to get into these avenues, get into these rooms to try to spark some change. Jury duty is one of those things. Jury duty, voting, all of those things we got to do, end quote. That is juror Brandon Mitchell. Brandon Mitchell, black male, when asked, have you ever attended a BLM protest, point blank said no. Recently, it has come out, not only did he attend the Black Lives Matter protest in Washington and the March on Washington, not only was he wearing a t-shirt about George Floyd, he's now saying outright, you need to get on the jury to make sure it gets the right verdict. If you want to spark change in this country, get on a jury. Tiger, what are your thoughts about that?
All right, so I kind of agree in a sense, like for anybody. And yeah, if you want to do your civic duty, if you want to do your civic duty, if you want to like, hey, just contribute to society, jury duty is a way to do it. I would agree. I don't agree with it being a militant way of doing things. Do not lie to get on jury. Do not lie to get off of a jury. I know of instances where doctors, they love to get off of juries. They're like, oh, our practice is too important. He can't be on the jury. And that, or people who are just like lie and be like, yeah, I know the guy. Yeah, I'd be totally biased. The judge sees through that and he's just like, okay, you know what? You are going to attend this trial, but not as a juror. You are ordered by the court to stay there as an observer for the entirety of the trial. So do not, they do that, I've seen it happen to doctors. So do not try to get off of jury duty. If you get that card in the mail, show up, answer the questions honestly.
Yes. And we wouldn't advise anyone to do what Brandon Mitchell has done. But I would take it a step further, Tiger. You're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like what you're saying is, yes, we should all want to get ourselves on the jury because implicitly that makes change because we are concerned with our civic duty and getting on the jury, voting, things like that. That is participating in the civic process, and that is our duty as citizens. Is that accurate for your position?
Yeah.
Okay. My position is this. And again, this is not legal advice. Do not do this. But Brandon Mitchell is absolutely right. I think he is 100% right. These people, and by these people, I don't mean black people. I mean these people as in these activists. These activists go into these juries with pride to get on the jury so that they can effect the jury verdict that they want, that they've always known had to be the outcome. They are willing to go there and to do these things. And look who's winning right now.
Yeah.
So we've said, let's get people on juries. Let's nullify things, right? If you have an unjust law, jury nullification is still a legitimate thing to do. But as lawyers, at least in Florida, I don't know about elsewhere, but you cannot, as an attorney, argue for jury nullification. You can't go to the jury and say, listen, my guy may have done it or not, but everybody in this room knows that this law is unjust. That even if he is guilty under this law should not stand. That even if he did commit a crime, it's not a real crime, and you have the power as the jury to nullify this. Just say not guilty. You can't say that as an attorney. But people like Brandon Mitchell, he gets it. He gets it. The entire, as I said in episode 1, please go back and listen to episode 1 if you're new to this show. Like I said in episode 1, the entire jury process is a lie. It is a total scam. People will be asked, can you remain impartial and judge the facts on their own? And if you want to be on that jury, all you got to say is yes. Of course I can remain impartial. How many people did that in the James Fields trial? Just to get on the jury, and then he was crucified. Life plus 419 years. More time than Charles Manson. More time than the World Trade Center bombers. Life plus 419 years for a car crash. Don't think they lied to get on that jury? Just like Brandon Mitchell, it's now proved that he lied to get on the jury. And look at him. James Fields, convicted. Life plus 419 years. Derek Chauvin, convicted. Both for intentionally killing the guy and unintentionally killing the guy. Incredible superpower Derek Chauvin has. Now he's going to be sentenced in July. So, really, you have to ask, if you are a political activist, do you get on the jury? Or do you say, no, I have some political ideologies that have given me some misgivings about saying that I am a neutral arbiter of fact, and I just don't know if I'd be a good fit for this, Your Honor. No. God, no. I'm not telling you to do that, but Brandon Mitchell knows the score. So I'm not going to get mad at Brandon Mitchell for deliberately lying to both lawyers and the judge and saying that he's impartial. Everybody knows he's not. And this is 100% going to be grounds for appeal now. If Derek Chauvin does not get a new trial at this point, that's it. The court system has declared itself illegitimate. It's over.
For sure. I mean, this is something. And, I mean, I've seen some people, though, say regarding the appeals process that with the federal charges coming down and now a new federal trial coming, that might take some pressure off of the appeals court to be able to declare a retrial or whatever remedy they see fit here for a clearly bogus trial that happened. So that it might happen. I think that he has a bit of a better chance at it now, especially with this. This guy's a dummy coming out and saying this. I mean, you know why he did it. I mean, he's waiting for a book deal or something. So.
Yeah, I heard he was a podcaster as well. I can't verify that, but that's what I've heard, is that he was a podcaster as well. So clearly, this is going to get him his 15 minutes of fame.
And by the way, too, the judge actually ordered that all of the jurors' names should be kept secret for at least 6 months. So, I mean, he's the second one to be violating this now, but I guess nobody cares.
We should probably read those articles about... Oops, that's the wrong browser window. The articles about the appeal. So, there are multiple articles now about this juror coming out saying that all these comments... Oh, here's one of my favorites before we move on to the articles on the appeal. In one of these interviews, because apparently he's done multiple interviews already, this juror, Mitchell said, this is an MSN.com article, Mitchell said he wanted to publicly extend his condolences to Floyd's family and let them know that his name is going to live on. Quote, his legacy is now cemented in history. It's now become so much bigger than him as an individual, he said. It will hopefully create some change within society, end quote. What an amazing statement. It's not as though he had some preformed opinion and lied to get himself on the jury. He is an actual activist, saying that George Floyd himself is going to create change within society. This verdict that he lied to get into is going to create change within society. That has to be grounds for a new trial.
You know, and before we get to the appeal, staying on that juror, there is something else that he revealed. And
what's that?
That was that. So the night of the trial ended and the jury went into deliberation, he said that there was only one juror there that was
That's right.
trying to argue that Chauvin was not guilty. And the entirety of the 10 hours, so it was something like, I would say it was almost 5 hours the one night, 5 hours the next morning. The entirety of that, it was just arguing with this one guy.
I actually heard him say it differently. He said it's not that the guy was arguing that Chauvin was innocent. Apparently, that guy was on the same page as everyone else, but he was more deliberative. And he was the guy that was holding everyone back, saying, whoa, 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 let's make sure we do this right. He was the guy that, and Brandon Mitchell said this, he's like, I'm not saying that he was holding us up or anything. I'm saying that he was making sure that we were doing it right. He was more cautious about the process, but he was always on the same page as us. So even the holdout was, let's see, you might not be able to hear this, Tiger, but everybody else should be. Sorry, man. But I'm going to listen to, this is a 2-minute clip of the guy talking. Let's see what this says.
And when you look at 10 hours of deliberations, was there one issue that the jury was struggling with over another? See, I look at it as there was cause of death and there was the use of force. Were you guys struggling over one of the issues?
No, not in terms of that. And even over the 10 hours, it wasn't exactly 10 hours. It was more like 6 hours, 5 or 6 hours. But during that time, we more so focused on the third-degree murder, and just the terminology used within it was a little bit confusing. But in terms of use of force or anything like that, I think we were all on the same page, and there was no really disputing or debating about that.
So you're saying when you walked into the deliberation room, did the jury come to a decision pretty quickly on some of the charges within the first hour?
Yeah, we definitely figured out manslaughter within the first hour right away. Then we took a break for dinner, actually, and then came back the next morning. But yeah, manslaughter figured out right away. Third degree took maybe 3.5 hours. And then the second degree murder, we figured out in maybe 30, 45 minutes.
Wow. And you know, that's interesting to hear, because we were, wondering what was happening in the room, how long you guys were deliberating on what it was. Was there one witness that maybe stood out, maybe for the prosecution side and maybe the defense's side, that you guys talked about?
So yeah, for sure, for the prosecution side, Dr. Chauvin, we all kind of used a lot of the things that he used as far as exhibits that he used. So in terms of he gave a specific time for the last breath that he thought the last breath was. We used that within our timeline that we made in the deliberation room. He was pretty much everybody's star witness, or at least number one or number two for the prosecution. For the defense, I didn't have a star witness for them, but I know some of the other jurors did like Dr. Fowler a lot. They thought he was definitely a pivotal witness. I personally didn't think any of the defensive witnesses were too good. I do think Aaron Nelson did a good job, though, with examining them.
I didn't think any of the defense witnesses were too good. You don't say, Mr. Mitchell. Tiger, were you able to hear any of that?
None of it, honestly.
Okay. Yeah, it's something to do with I don't know how to fix that, but so this is a recap for everybody else too. They came to the decision on manslaughter within an hour. The third-degree murder, it took them, I think he said a couple of hours, like 2 or 3 hours. And then second-degree murder, they came up with the verdict in 30 to 45 minutes. So, yeah, it might have looked like it took 10 hours, but really, the guy has said himself it only took about 6 hours, really. And when you consider an hour for manslaughter, 2 to 3 hours for third-degree murder, and 45 minutes tops for second-degree murder, you're looking at like 4 hours and 45 minutes tops to come up with the verdict. Incredible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it really is. Like, hey, I know on this show, after the verdict came out, I was like, oh, well, they went into the extra day, so it looks like at least they weren't burning to hang the guy. But, well, I'm proven wrong.
Yeah, it looks like they were yearning to hang the guy. Yeah. And that's with one guy dragging his feet, making sure they'd crossed all their T's and dotted all their I's. Who I saw it in here. Somebody was asking a good question. Is this juror going to face any consequences? Asks Chase. I don't know. I've never seen it before. I've never seen a juror charged with a crime for lying in voir dire or doing something else in that regard. Have you ever heard of that, Tiger?
No, I don't think so. I remember there was something about a juror on the Roger Stone case where it turned out she was like an avid, I don't know, I guess Democrat, I don't know, but against Roger Stone, and she was the jury foreman. And it just ended up with the judge saying, well, you should have investigated your jurors more carefully. So.
Yeah, that's what it always comes down to. I had a case like that where a woman on the juror lied about not knowing anything about the case, said, yeah, I've heard something on the news about it. And there was a high-profile case. I won't say which one, but I will say the woman straight up lied about not knowing anything about it, because it turns out that she was actually friends with my client's uncle, and that this client's uncle had been in a fight with the client's father, and the woman, the juror, her daughter, was apparently dating my client's cousin. Like, you know, that's a huge omission. When you're being asked, do you know anything about this case? Do you know my client? And she says, no, I might have heard something on the news. Turns out not only that, well, anyway. Yeah, nothing happened. Nothing happened to her. And the prosecutor was like, well, you know, you didn't have a problem with it when she said, you know, she knew this and that. So clearly you're just being a sore loser when all this was over, because eventually somebody pointed out, my client didn't know the woman, but somebody in the family on the last day pointed out that woman is friends with so-and-so, and then the whole thing came out. And by that time it was too late. And the juror never faced any consequences whatsoever, even when I proved dead to rights that she had lied in voir dire. So, to answer your question, Chase, I really doubt it. I really doubt they're going to face consequences. Plus, you remember how politically motivated the prosecutor was in the Derek Chauvin trial. Do you think that prosecutor or anyone in his office is going to bring charges against a black man who is a member of Black Lives Matter, who was instrumental in this whole thing? No, absolutely not. Because if the prosecutor's office there pressed charges against that guy for lying in voir dire, it would destroy their entire narrative of the case. It would destroy the entire thing they were trying to do, right? So no, my opinion is the juror will not face any consequences, Chase, I'm sorry to say. We have another question. We have patriots from January 6th in solitary confinement. Who will defend them? That was El Dragon's words, not mine. We are not political. We love Big Brother. But I will say that if someone was involved in that and needs a criminal defense lawyer, they are welcome to call me. We cannot contact them. This is a rule that most people don't know because they're so used to ambulance chasers and what's a PC word? Unethical attorneys who chase ambulances and do all sorts of sordid things to get clients. You're not actually allowed to do that. So even though they are sitting in jail, even though we know who these people are, thanks to the Justice Department airing their names all over the place, we are not allowed to contact them. So what usually happens is they would write a letter to us, or their family would get in contact with us, or their friends would get in contact with us, and they would say, hey, so-and-so in X jail wanted me to contact you about his case, and then we would take it from there. But we are not allowed to go solicit them as clients. So who will defend them? I don't know. Unless they reach out to us, I don't know, El Dragon. What else we got here? Oh, the O.J. Simpson trial? Yes. Yes, you should watch that on Netflix, The People vs. O.J. Simpson, if it's still on there.
If not, it's on Court TV. It's on their website.
Oh, really?
Yep.
The miniseries with Cuba Gooding Jr.?
Oh, no, the trial itself.
Oh,
if you actually
nah.
want to watch the trial.
Who wants to watch that when you've got Cuba Gooding Jr. playing O.J. Simpson, man? Come on, get real. I've also got Ross from Friends playing the Kardashian. So, I actually don't know, my man. I have never read that, but let me write a note of it, and we'll get that. Tiger, you want to talk about the appeal now? All the grounds for appeal? We've got a couple articles on that.
Yeah, so, oh boy. See, it looks like I was going to talk about last week, and then I deleted all those notes. But there is more than, if you've been listening to the show, we've been talking about the whole time the grounds for appeal from the way voir dire was conducted, especially now with these new revelations, to the prosecutor calling the defense a liar. There's a lot for appeal, but there's a few problems with appeal whenever you're trying to appeal something. One is that now Chauvin is presumed guilty and trying to prove that his trial was conducted unfairly or that the law does not apply. And the law that itself, the charges that he was given, those are also grounds for appeal, specifically that messed up felony murder rule. Where like, if you shoot somebody, that's a felony murder. It's probably the only state in the entire union where that's it. And
well, no, a few states have the felony murder rule, and that's actually a long-standing rule.
If you shoot somebody, that is the underlying felony for felony murder?
Well, I don't know. That might I didn't realize that was what they were going with, but
that is exactly what it is. In this case, the underlying felony is the assault, which is him pinning down Floyd.
Yeah, well, that's how ridiculous it can be when you start using the black letter of the law instead of the spirit of the law. It used to be that felony murder, for those uninitiated in the legal profession, felony murder means that when you are committing a felony and somebody dies as a result, you are on the hook for murder. So, for instance, if you go in with your buddies and you hold up a bank, it doesn't matter if you've got fake guns, right? You go in, you hold up a bank with fake plastic guns, and somebody runs out of the bank and gets hit by a car, they're going to charge you with felony murder if that person dies. You're robbing that bank, somebody has a heart attack because of what you're doing, felony murder, because you're the proximate cause of their death while you are committing a felony. And that used to make sense back when felonies were actually felonies. Back in the good old days when a felony meant you get the death sentence anyway. So if you are a horse thief, now that might be a little obsolete now, but let's say you've robbed somebody, you've committed a burglary, like actual burglary, like you've broken into the dwelling of another after dark.